Welcome back to our How-To series on the Climatiq Excel add-in. In this video, we cover the Procurement by Classification Scheme formula. This is useful for calculating emissions for GHG Protocol categories 3.1, which is purchase goods and services, and 3.2 capital goods, which are usually the biggest contributors to Scope 3 emissions. The Climatiq Procurement by Classification Scheme formula enables you to calculate carbon emissions based on standardized industry codes, such as MCC, UNSPSC, ISIC, NACE, or NAICS codes. This is especially helpful if your organization's procurement data is already tagged with classification or accounting codes. Behind the scenes, this formula uses XIO-based emission factors, a large-scale economic model that maps spending to environmental impact. XIO-based factors reflect factory gate emissions in basic prices, but business spend is typically in purchaser prices that include the margins, transport, and taxes. Climatiq automatically converts purchaser prices to basic prices before calculating emissions. The tool also corrects for inflation and currency using Eurostat and World Bank data, ensuring accurate emission calculations regardless of when or where the purchases occurred. Together, these adjustments make your results both accurate and audit-ready and fully aligned with the GHG Protocol Scope 3 methodology. Let's start by taking a look at the documentation in the Excel task pane. The formula is under the Procurement heading, titled as Procurement by Classification Codes, and it accepts 6 inputs: the classification scheme, the classification code, the region, the year, and the amount spent, and the currency, of course. These inputs allow Climatiq to locate the appropriate emission factor, apply region-specific inflation and margin adjustments, and return the carbon estimate for the activity. Let's walk through an example. Here I have a simple file containing a list of procurement transactions. One of the entries shows a purchase of 15,000 euros on office furniture in the UK in 2024. The spend is categorized using a standard industry code, in this case UNSPSC, and the classification is 4321 and 4 zeros at the end. To prepare the file, I make sure I have the columns for scheme, code, region, year, amount, and currency. Now that the data is ready, let's calculate. To start, we can click on an empty cell in the workbook, hit equals on your keyboard, and then select the Procurement by Classification formula from the list of options. Alternatively, you can insert the formula directly via the task pane. Then select each input one by one: the classification scheme, the classification code, the region, the year, the amounts, and the currency, separated by commas or semicolons depending on your Excel settings. Close the bracket, press enter, and within a few moments, the formula returns an emissions result. Before reviewing the outputs, I always recommend clicking the Add Header button in the task pane to label the columns. It makes it easier to read the results. Let's take a closer look at what's being calculated. The first value you'll see is the total emissions estimate in kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Alongside this are the details of the exact emission factor that was used to perform the calculation. Following this, we have the activity value, which represents the final adjusted spend amount used in the calculation after applying all trade, tax, transport, and inflation adjustments to the original spend amount. To finish off, we have the tax, trade, and transport margins that were applied, as well as the inflation adjustments made based on your provided spend year. To make the calculation for all of the business data you have in the sheet, pull down on the formula to apply it to all of the rows. Each row will automatically map to the right emission factor based on the classification scheme and code provided. Finally, if you want to get a quick start, Climatiq also provides a ready-made procurement by industry classification scheme template. You can find it in the task pane under the Templates tab. It includes pre-filled examples, required inputs, and active formulas that you can edit or expand with your own data. You've now learned how to calculate carbon emissions from procurement data using industry classification schemes directly within Excel. To learn how to use other Climatiq formulas, check out the next videos in this how-to series. I'll see you in the next video.